I've discussed the general history of the Mirage-2000 in other reviews, but an interesting subchapter of that story is the jet's service with the Republic of China in Taiwan. The Taiwanese placed an order for the Mirage-2000 in late 1992, and starting in 1997, a special version was delivered to the Republic of China Air Force. The Mirage-2000 5Ei differed from the regular models by having the flight refueling probe removed, along with a combat computer optimized for air combat and interception with no capability for air-to-ground weapons. The introduction of the new Mirages was a bit problematic, as the planes experienced structural problems and its maintenance costs were far higher than projected. The Republic of China Air Force currently still has about 50 Mirage 2000s, including two-seat trainers, and has been looking for a replacement option for some time purely out of financial considerations, but so far it hasn't found a cost-effective solution. What we get in War Thunder is the Mirage-2000 5Ei, a jet fighter in rank 8 of the Chinese tech tree at battle rating 13.7 for air and 12.0 for ground. This jet gets a full ballistics computer despite not having any air-to-ground weapons, but the EEGS can still be relevant. It also has the Serval radar warning receiver, which tracks into the J-band and includes the DDM-2000 missile approach warning system. But as always, I recommend turning off automatic countermeasure slaving, or else you're going to run out real quick. The radar set is the Thales RDY, a fairly modern radar set with multiple look-down modes, track while scan, helmet-mounted targeting, and 4 data link channels. For loadouts, this jet gets pylons for up to 8 air-to-air missiles, and a drop tank. That's it. Your infrared missile is the Matra 550 Magic II, an all-aspect weapon with 35 Gs of pull and infrared countermeasures. This is a high-performance heatseeker, and it does pretty well in close-up dogfights. Your radar missile is the Mica EM. This thing is a monster. It's a 50 G missile with thrust vectoring and active radar homing. While its performance at longer range can often be a little below average, its lethality at medium or close range is extremely high, especially coupled with the helmet-mounted targeting. The flight performance of this jet is generally good on its own, but over the last year or so, the Mirage 2000 has generally been power crept pretty hard by stuff like the F-15. The acceleration is fairly constant throughout low to high speeds, and it's got a good rate of climb, but again, not as good as some of the other current rank 8 jets. The overall agility is still pretty decent, and with good basic flight maneuvers, it can hold its own in a dogfight against a lot of other potential opponents. But planes with high AOA performance can still turn inside of it. The good news is, the poor energy retention in those kinds of maneuvers will generally even things out a bit against the poor energy retention of the Mirage 2000's Delta Wing. So, despite power creep with engine output, the overall dogfighting performance can still be competitive if you're careful with your engagements. Taking this jet into air battles kind of forces you to play against its limitations. You are purely air-to-air in this plane, but you're generally going to be one of the slower jets on the team coming up off the runway, and your primary weapon, the Micas, aren't as good at long range as the AMRAAMs. Part of this is due to the balance between booster and sustainer thrust, and the Mica having a slightly shorter seek time, plus the Mica has a much smaller loft angle. Now because of all this, the Mirage isn't usually going to do as well in traditional BVR jousting against most of the planes it faces. The good news is the extreme lethality of the Micas at shorter ranges. The thrust vectoring, high booster thrust, and 50 G maneuvering make these things incredibly dangerous for medium or close range fighting, and you'll generally have the best results with this jet if you try to stay low instead of going high, and use the terrain as best you can to get up close and engage opponents within the MAR. It's higher risk than the usual spam ram meta, but it seems to work pretty well with this jet. Visually, I've always liked the Mirage 2000. This one has a really clean 3D model, and the default paint job is nice, but the only other camo pattern is just some tail fin artwork, so if you want a more flashy jet, you're going to need to hit War Thunder Live. Landing is fairly typical of fast jets, and this one usually lands a little fast. No drag chute on this version of the Mirage, so make sure to touch down early with lots of runway to slow down. You can safely put the gear out at a little over 400 kilometers an hour, and it's got an air brake. The cockpit on this jet is pretty decent. The visibility is good, and the instruments are all easy to read. You get a useful heads-up display, and I found the jet really easy to fly in VR, both for basic piloting and for air combat. To close out with the Mirage-2000 5Ei. This jet's missiles are insane for short-range engagements. It's got a fairly good radar set with helmet-mounted targeting, and it gets a missile approach warning system. However, it's not the best at BVR, it's got zero air-to-ground combat potential, and it's been a victim of power creep compared to some of the other Rank 8 jets. The final verdict on this version of the Mirage-2000 is that it adds a bit of variety to the Chinese tech tree, but it isn't going to push the air combat meta. I'm personally okay with that, and the jet is still really fun to fly, but just know what you're getting into before you dive into it. As always, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, check out this other one.